So the alchemical process is the natural progression of how living energies move through us and how we transform. And remember, the ancient original name for Egypt was Chem, Khem, where the word chemistry comes from and where alchemical comes from. Okay? And so I learned about it from the Sufi approach to retreat and transformation. And it basically, they say dissolve a coagulate in Latin. So you dissolve in order to recoagulate. And so there has to be a process where you purify, release, and let go. And then a middle state where you're in transition, where you're in that neutral kind of place that actually is fairly uncomfortable for most of us. And if you notice in our week-long retreats, it's usually on Wednesday. It's right in the middle of our 5 or 6 days. And if you remember, in a lot of our retreats, that would be the afternoon that I would give you off to go wander. We were forced to take it off yesterday. So then you have this middle state where you've released, and then the energies are bringing you to the place where you can then move forward and move into the new emergence or the recoagulation of your new being. Okay? So for some reason, that's just very natural to me. I kind of was born knowing about that process, and I've been aware of it in my life, of when I'm going through a disintegration, dissolving process before the new process comes along. And I never like it, ever, but I've learned to recognize it and try to be as graceful as I can when I go through it. But it always feels like you're all elbows and just like awkwardly not fitting in, because everything that has been formatted in you and that you're used to doing no longer fits. No longer fits. And you don't know what the emergence is going to coagulate as. You have no idea, and you don't have a way of knowing, because you have to go through the process for it to happen. And so you can maybe have some sneak peeks, but you really don't know who you're going to be after that. And so in our culture, we don't leave room and space for that process. No one's allowed to be in that awkward space. No one's allowed to not know what's going on with themselves. There's no support for that initial stage, because there's always this push to be on top of everything, and you need space and time to go through the process. And so it's very difficult to go through this when you're in our United States culture. And so then you end up fighting it. That's when we have our accidents. That's when we get sick. That's when our career blows up, or our relationship blows up, or something blows up, because that resistance, when you need the space and time and you're not getting it, there's a force within you that's trying to have you go through it, and it's resistant against the culture and all you've been conditioned to. And that's what creates a lot of this discomfort and misery in your life. And when we're supposed to be disintegrating in order to shift, there's a knowing in us about that. And we will suppress it as hard as we possibly can. Not because you want to do that, but because you've been conditioned to do it. And I want you to hear that. This piece about conditioning is really, really big. Really big. You yourself want to go through the change. But the fear of not fitting in is so big. And the conditioning of how things should be is so big that it overshadows the soul's timing and cycle. Okay? So, everyone's happy with you when you come out the other end. They love your energy and they like, what you've turned into. But there's no space for this beginning of the process. And so we end up not understanding. I mean, it can create total breakdowns in people, where you completely have a mental, emotional breakdown or a physical thing. In my life, the pattern has been for me to have a really intense illness, starting from when I was a kid, of getting bronchitis and pneumonia, and then Lyme disease, and everything. It turns into an illness. And when I'm sick and super sick, I have permission to drop out. That's what my body, that's how my body, or I don't think it. I don't think, oh, I need to get sick so I can go through this. But my body will do that. My being will create that space. And then when I get really, really sick, I have a high fever and I can't eat and my throat is so sore and I'm like totally out of it, I go into this deep, incredible, released state. And I know throughout my life that that's going to happen. I know the pattern. And I keep saying, please, 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 just let me go through this. I'm taking care of myself. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. Do I have to go through this again?
Yes.
And then it happens again. And so, but I go into that very deep state where I can feel the shift and the switch turn on for the new evolution to come through. And then I know I'm going to get better. And then all of a sudden, I'm all better. And so it's just happened so many times in my life like that, and I really still, even yesterday, I was saying, please, 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 just let me go through this gracefully, whatever the next one is. And so that's been my pattern. And maybe you have a pattern of like blowing up your relationships or blowing up your job or, having an accident. Accidents are big parts of that. And you should just kind of recognize what your pattern is and say, okay, this is what it's been. It's trying to help me.